What's up, everybody? So, now we're going to do part two of biker questions. Now, the first one was about joining motorcycle clubs and the kind of standards that are there. And on this one, we're going to do reasons people don't make it through the process of prospecting, probation, and making their patch, and reasons why people leave on their own, and women in the club community and how that all goes about. So I'm going to try to cover those roughly in that order, and I'm going to try to stay on topic. So we'll get started with that. One of the last things that I had mentioned in the other video was that, or first things that rather that I had mentioned in that video was that not everybody makes it, but we were going to give you in that hypothetical situation the benefit of the doubt. Well, then I was later asked, well, what are some reasons why people don't make it? Well, then I got thinking. There are two kinds of reasons, usually. Club reasons, personal reasons. We'll start with club reasons. It tends to be, usually, you may not even make it into the prospecting period from being a hang-around if you are somebody who does not show up or doesn't introduce yourself to the members of the club or is not involved. If you're not involved, they have no reason to bring you in. Because if you're not involved as a hang-around, why would they think you would be involved when they gave you a different patch? So a lack of involvement or enthusiasm, that tends to be a big reason why people don't even get to begin their process. But then moving forward, if you get into the process, there are a handful of reasons why, and some of these depend club to club, but there are a handful of reasons why you may not make it in the organization you're aiming at. From the prospecting period, attendance is definitely a big deal. You need to be there. You need to be seen. People in the club need to know you. People in other clubs need to know you. That's how that community works. The saying is, if you ain't seen, you ain't shit. Nobody knows you're there. So the club is going to want you to be present and involved. If you are not paying your dues, you will be removed. If you break the rules that are designated for your tier of membership on a regular basis, you will likely first be punished. Whether that be a fine or you have to go do some sort of detail or something like that. Likely you will first be punished. You'll get a warning. If the behavior continues, the club will remove your patches and tell you to go away. And that is true through any tier of, even when you're a full patch, you don't get to just break the rules. There are always rules that you have to follow. So those are a lot of the main reasons. Other reasons why I've seen clubs give people the boot is because of reasons like they drank too much. They were alcoholics and needed desperate help. And the club scene was only making that problem worse for them. So they needed to remove them from that world for their own sake, to make sure that person did not continue to be detrimental to themselves. Because ultimately, yeah, the club does have a certain level of care for you. And if you're destroying yourself prior to club life, and that comes into club life, certain environments that you will be exposed to may make that worse. And if the club sees that and they actually genuinely care about you, they may tell you that this is not the right place for you to be. This is hurting you. You need to go get help, and then come back. Something along those lines is. I've seen that happen more than once, whether it be with alcohol or other substances. It can be seen as an issue by the club. And if the club sees it as an issue, they will deal with that as they know how and see fit. So things like that tend to be reasons, but that's in that area is where the line kind of starts to blur between club reasons and personal reasons. Another reason why some clubs may kick you out that falls on that kind of like blurry gray area is if you get locked up, you end up going to prison or jail for some reason. Depending on the club, they may either permanently or temporarily, or they may not at all, remove you of your patches because you're not an active member and you're not doing what you need to do. So they may, depending on the club and the situation, that may happen in that. Now, here's where we'll take and kind of push the gray area stuff off with the rest of the club reasons, and we'll move into like personal reasons. Reasons that people themselves have either told me themselves why they left clubs, or reasons why I've heard that people have left clubs while in the club community. I will not, in videos like this, I will not speak on anything that I've heard since having left the club community, because that's all hearsay. I will only cover things that I personally experienced in the club and reasons why I know that people have left. They can't afford it. They come into financial hard times and they end up in a situation where they may have to sell their motorcycle or something like that. They just like financially run into some really tough times because something happened or something, and they have to leave the club. Uh, that tends to be a way that people leave the club in good standing. It's not their fault they had to leave the club, but it is a circumstance of their life, and they're always welcome back. There have been other things where I've seen people leave the club because they feel like there's a lot of favoritism being played, where they feel like themselves are being held to a different standard than what other patched brothers would be held, or what other brothers in their tier of progress are being held to. We had in the club I was in, we had a prospect vocalize to us that he felt that the other prospects were being treated more favorably. And in that circumstance, we sat him down. We told him why he was being treated the way he was. He understood. He still disagreed. He decided to leave. We didn't hold it against him. That's his own personal reasons. I can't be mad at you for feeling like you're being treated unfairly, right? That is legitimately how you feel, and you have your reasons. So I can tell you that that's not the way that we see it. It's unfortunate that you see it that way yourself. But unless you choose to see it differently, we can't change this. We can't do anything about it. So he decided to leave. So things like that, or it tends to be like if that person ends up in a lot of turmoil with people in the club, other brothers in the club, that'll definitely motivate people to walk away. And it tends to be a lot of people tend to, if they walk away, they tend to leave in good standing. If the club has to tell you to leave, it tends not to be good standing, and they don't want you back. If you leave on your own, you can handle that politely, and you can do that respectfully, and you can leave yourself a doorway to come back. Usually if the club has to tell you to leave, that's not the way it goes down. They tell you, get gone, we don't want you, and don't come back. But then again, there are exceptions to that. All right, with those being covered, kind of quick video here, but with those being covered, we'll get into women in the biker community. Now, for a long time, motorcycle club life was very, very male oriented. And it wasn't until relatively recently, I'd say probably the past maybe 30 or 40 years, that women have really started like really seriously getting into motorcycling. And as a result, there have sprung up some female only clubs as there are male only clubs. Now, I've always personally fancied this. I don't see any reason why women shouldn't have the ability to have a club exclusive to them, as well as men having a club exclusive to them, where the membership, it's not that men and women can't be around those clubs. It's that specifically that club is for men, specifically that club is for women. And because the MC community has largely been like this throughout most of its existence. Now, there are clubs that are bisex. They don't care, male or female, you can join. But these come with their own unique issues, and they come with their own unique rules and bylaws. Now, typically, male-only clubs tend to engage in a lot of different things than female-only clubs. Clubs that are ladies only tend to not have certain markers. They tend not to wear certain kinds of patches, and they tend not to frequent certain events. They are a lot harder to spot, usually just because there aren't as many. But that's not to say that there aren't just as many serious lady writers out there like that. For a long time, the idea of a woman in the MC community was she was the affiliate of the brother of the club. And as such, she was either that man's girlfriend or wife. And this was marked out with some clubs with the property of, or proud old lady of, or some sort of something like that. And this wasn't to denote ownership or anything like this necessarily, so much as it was like, hey, she's taken, and out of respect for the other brothers around you, leave her alone. And it because it really wasn't to do with the ladies, it was to do with the other brothers, because we know that there are single brothers in other clubs and they see pretty women, and of course a single man is attracted to a pretty girl. Men are attracted to women on average, like that tends to be the case. So we know that if a single brother sees a woman who it seems like she might be single, he may approach her. So if she's wearing something that says my boyfriend is this brother, that eliminates that issue, that takes and gets rid of a lot of potential conflict between two men over a woman who had no real part in the conflict other than just existing there. And that removes her from the conflict, that removes the conflict in general usually. So then later on you get ladies where they want to ride on their own, and they start forming their own groups. And you have several groups in many states. You have 5 or more lady only organizations, and they are just as effective and structured as the male only organizations. They just tend to frequent different events because, let's be honest, ladies tend to be kind of interested in different things than men a lot of times. Whereas as male only clubs tend to frequent bars and things like this, female only clubs tend to actually like go out to like carnivals and things like that. They like to go do things like that, where male only clubs will do that, but they tend to go hang out much more exclusively amongst themselves than lady only clubs tend to. So there are a lot of lady riders in the MC world, all from everywhere from men's only clubs as the beautiful old lady of any given brother to the beautiful pilot of her own badass machine in her own club. Lady riders are awesome when it comes to the MC world. They're almost always the sweetest people you will ever meet. And usually they're some of the most respected people in the community because they tend to be very good people. I've seen a lot of documentaries where people say that bikers view women as property and blah, 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 and that just simply isn't the case. That argument can be made about men and women both at large, and there are people in both sides of that who view the opposite as property or possession. That's not particular to any group, that's particular to certain kinds of people. So when it comes to that, the lady riders are always welcome. Men, you have rules to follow. Ladies, you also have rules to follow. And as long as everybody's playing by the rules of the game, everybody's happy and nobody gets told to go away. Those are some of the reasons why that people have been told to leave, and that is some of the information about ladies in the MC community, a brief history that is way underdone, and I hope you guys found that interesting. Have a good night.